Candidates will stand at a lectern for the length of the debate. Each candidate will wear a wireless microphone, no personal electronic devices.
Hi, y'all. I'm Claire McFarland. I live right here in Riverton.
Chris Clements, Wyoming Public Radio. Excited to be here today.
Okay, Richard Brubaker, Libertarian.
Hi, Elle Cameron, running for U.S. House of Representatives. I feel like there's an echo. Is there?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Good evening, Jeffrey Haggit, Constitution Party, running for U.S. House. Hello, check 1, 2. Hello. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good evening and welcome to Wyoming PBS for the 2024 U.S. House of Representatives General Election Debate. I'm Steve Peck, Senior Producer for Public Affairs at Wyoming PBS. Our debate tonight is coming to you from the Robert A. Peck Arts Center Theater on the campus of Central Wyoming College in Riverton. Our thanks to the college and Dr. Brad Tyndall, the college president, for hosting this event. The debate is being aired live statewide on Wyoming PBS and on Wyoming Public Radio, and streamed live on the Wyoming PBS YouTube channel. The debate will be available afterward as well, on-demand video online at wyomingpbs.org. And we make mention at this point that while Wyoming PBS and Wyoming Public Radio have similar names, they are independent, unaffiliated organizations. This reminder as well, the debate will be followed immediately by the general election debate for Wyoming's available seat in the U.S. Senate. That debate also will be aired nationwide on C-SPAN. Our thanks to Joanna Kale, General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of Wyoming PBS, for her welcoming remarks to our live audience before the debate, which is being coordinated for television by Wyoming PBS production manager Kyle Nikoloff and his production team. Our station has been organizing and hosting and airing statewide campaign debates for more than 30 years as part of what we view as a mission to inform and engage the people of Wyoming on important matters of civic citizenship. That mission is important, and at Wyoming PBS, we take it seriously. Joining me as panelists for the debate this evening are two experienced and knowledgeable Wyoming journalists. Claire McFarland, crime and courts reporter for Cowboy State Daily, and Chris Clements, state government reporter for Wyoming Public Radio. Now, briefly, the ground rules for the debate, which the participating candidates have agreed to ahead of time. The debate is scheduled to last no more than 60 minutes. Each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement in alphabetical order. Candidates will be questioned in order by the panelists. Each candidate being asked a new question will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidates then will have 90 seconds to respond to the same question. The original candidate then will have 30 seconds for rebuttal or follow-up if desired. Panelists may ask follow-up questions if the candidates fall sharply or drastically off topic. The moderator, at his discretion, may allow a candidate additional time to respond if the candidate has been attacked personally, although we don't expect that to happen. We urge candidates to respond to the topics presented to the questions we ask them. The debate will conclude with 2-minute closing statements from each candidate, speaking in reverse order from their opening statements. The candidates can see a green, yellow, and red timing light from their positions on stage. The yellow light will illuminate when the candidate has 30 seconds for response time remaining. Candidates must end their responses when the light turns red, when they also will hear an alarm. The timer for the debate tonight is Christina George of Wyoming PBS. This note, Representative Harriet Hageman, the incumbent and Republican nominee for U.S. House, is not here tonight. She did not respond to repeated invitations beginning in August. Now it's time to introduce the candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives debate who are here in alphabetical order. Closest to the panelist table is Richard Brubaker, Libertarian Party nominee. Next is Kyle Cameron, Democratic Party nominee. And finally, Jeff Haggit, nominee of the Constitution Party. Candidates, ready to begin? The first question will be from me. Mr. Brubaker, you'll be the first to respond. This is the second consecutive general election in which Wyoming's incumbent U.S. representatives has opted not to participate in the statewide debate. Should this be an issue of concern to Wyoming voters?
I think the Wyoming voters should be concerned that she feels like she doesn't need to appear before them and speak what she feels. It's like she sees herself as the queen and we're just the whatever below her. On the flip side of that, I'm going to say that knowing what I've learned over the years, it is important that we have somebody with some political clout in Washington, D.C. to protect our rights. But I think that people need to speak out, go to the polls and vote. I'm running to ask people to vote. If they don't feel like there's somebody they can vote for, the Libertarian probably won't win, very doubtful. And just voting that direction shows your sign of discontent with the other two big parties. They're kind of, both of them are big government, spending our money, taking away our rights, and people come to me asking, what can we do? What can we do? And then they stay away from the polls. They need to go out and vote. It's telling the government how we feel. And I'm up here on this stage tonight debating for my part in trying to slow down this runaway government. So go to the polls and vote and express your opinions. Thank you.
Ms. Cameron.
I apologize. Did we get an introduction?
We got an introduction, and I regret to say that I neglected to mention this was the opening statement, not the first question. Proceed with your opening statement if you'd like for 2 minutes, and Mr. Brubaker will come back to you if you'd like us to. I think you had an opening statement kind of response to that question.
So opening
2
statement.
minutes for opening statements.
And then
yes.
we'll
my,
wait
my
to-
apologies too.
That's fine. Hi, thank you. And I want to make sure I understand. Thank you, Wyoming Public Broadcasting, PBS, Central Wyoming College. I'm not sure who else I'm forgetting, but thank you. It is important that we do this, and there are so many people that are behind the scenes that help put something like this together. My name is Kyle Cameron. I am campaigning for U.S. House of Representatives for Wyoming's at-large district. I am a Wyoming native. I was born in Cheyenne. My mother is also a Wyoming native. She was born on the homestead outside DuBois, Wyoming. My father was born in Oklahoma, and he, along with his mother and several of his siblings, made Wyoming their forever home, and I think that's a familiar story to many of us. I am a University of Wyoming graduate. I graduated from Casper College in the distance learning program, and I was one of the earliest graduates in that program, and from that I learned the fundamentals of how important education is in Wyoming's frontier. I have a master's degree from Colorado State University. I also have a master's degree in philosophy from Walden University. I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters who are Cheyenne natives. They were born in Cheyenne. They are also University of Wyoming graduates. I have 1 son who was born in Ray, Colorado, and he is finding his own path on this journey we call life. I stand before you here today because I am passionate about the U.S. Constitution and using it and recognizing it as the rule of law for the United States. And it is such a wonderful document that it has provided us the rules and the guidelines for us to be the greatest country in the world. My name is Kyle Cameron. You can look at my website, cameronforwyoming.net, to learn more about me. Let me just say that a vote for me is a vote for Wyoming, and a vote for a Democrat in this election cycle in Wyoming is a vote for democracy. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit, 2 minutes for opening statement.
Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to thank PBS and Wyoming Public Media for broadcasting this debate. And thanks to Central Wyoming College for the use of their facilities. And thank you, audience, whether in person or tuning in. Hello, my name is Jeffrey Haggit. I'm the Constitution Party candidate and state party chairman. As a constitutional conservative, I firmly believe as a constitutional conservative, I firmly believe in the principles that our founding fathers enshrined in the Constitution. These principles, limited government, individual liberty, and personal responsibilities, are the bedrock of this great nation. In today's rapidly changing world, it is important to remember that our Constitution is not just a historical document, but a living testament to the values that have guided our country for over 2 centuries. We must uphold these values to ensure these freedoms are preserved for future generations. America's lawmakers find themselves at a critical point when it comes to the protection of our liberties and national interests, such as personal medical freedoms, private property rights. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and the outcome of how successful Congress is in the protection of these and other rights is up to you in your voting. So, and be involved. So, I'm also a graduate of a Western Wyoming Community College with a degree in industrial electricity. I graduated Phi Theta Kappa, and so I've been involved in a bunch of other stuff. But anyway, thank you all, and let's get up.
Mr. Brubaker, I kind of aced you out of your opening statement. You can take 30 seconds now to add some personal material if you'd like.
I'd like to say I moved to Wyoming when I was 11 years old, been here ever since. Grew up on a farm, married a 4th generation Wyomingite lady who taught school in Riverton for a long time. And I've been involved in the Libertarian Party for many years. And I'd like to thank PBS for hosting some of the best, probably some of the best debates in the United States on fairness and opportunity for people to speak out. Thank you.
Ms. Cameron, Mr. Brubaker answered the question about Representative Hageman's absence today. You have 2 minutes or 90 seconds to respond if you'd like.
Thank you. Obviously, Representative Hageman does not represent us. Otherwise, we would not have these two gentlemen and myself up here, which is an amazing thing. Thank you guys for both being here. Representative Hageman does not represent me. She does not represent my family. She does not represent my community, and she's not doing a very good job of representing Wyoming. I see 4 possible scenarios, and then I have a 5th, which is my gut feeling. The first scenario is that Trump wins, Harriet wins. Trump will nominate Harriet to be the Secretary of the Interior, and the Republican Party will have to name somebody to replace her. Number 2, Trump wins, I win, I will be hung. Number 3, Harris wins, Harriet wins, nothing will get done for Wyoming. Number 4, Harris wins, I win, Wyoming will thrive. Let me tell you, I do not have illusions about this. I know that this is not all going to be butterflies and waterfalls. I can see for myself the drought. I can see for myself the smoke from the fires. I know that what we're about to face is not going to be easy, and I am ready to go to Washington, D.C. and tackle that. Let me tell you the 5th scenario, and this comes from my gut. That's where this is coming from. The 5th scenario is that neither Trump nor Harriet actually want the job. I've been all over Wyoming. Not once have I seen Harriet. Neither one of them really want the job. What they really want is to be on the golf course and drinking tequila or whatever they drink by their waterside property. Put somebody in Washington, D.C. who's ready to go to work, who's willing to do the work. Let me tell you, folks, I'm tired of fighting. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit.
The fact that Harriet's not here, I think that it just shows that this is a Republican state. She won by over 70% last time, and against Liz Cheney, and people were definitely wanting to change, and I think that helped her percentages. But she feels, she's very confident, I think, in her being reelected, and she doesn't feel the need to be here and to be a part of this debate and answer questions from this esteemed panel. And so I don't know her reasons, other than I know her group thinks that she's traveling a lot of miles. She's doing town hall meetings, and she feels that's good enough for her. And so if she doesn't feel like she needs to be here, that's on her. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And I don't have any strong feelings about her not being here either way. So I'm sure she has her reasons, but I think I really feel that that's why she's not here, is because she doesn't feel like she needs to be here.
Candidates, thank you. Our next question is from Claire McFarland. Ms. Cameron, you'll be the first to respond.
The Wyoming legislature cut $1.7 million from diversity, equity, and inclusion programming at the University of Wyoming for the upcoming biennium. On the national front, President Biden in 2021 ordered DEI considerations in federal hiring. Do you see any place for DEI in government-funded institutions like universities or government in general, and why or why not?
Do I see DEI as being, tell me that again?
Does DEI have a place in government decisions or in government-funded institutions like universities?
Yes, I do think that the government does have a place in providing that funding for DEI. Let's talk about that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is exclusion and not wanting to include people. So, you know, we're here in Wyoming, folks, and it's just a few of us, and we really, I don't think, can afford to be telling people to not be here. We need to be inviting people in. We need to be including people, and we need those diverse populations. We need those diverse thoughts. When we start to have our little funnels on and we don't see what else is going out in the world, we lose that opportunity to grow and to be better than we have before. It's heartbreaking that DEI got cut, and I know there was a recent article about the students of the university being asked if it impacted them, and the answer was probably no, but they were asking the wrong population. The population to ask is the people who didn't choose to come to University of Wyoming, the people that felt like because we don't have diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not going to come. That's the people that we need to be asking why they're not coming, and I think that answer is obvious. We benefit when we have a diverse population. We benefit from equity. We benefit from inclusion. And if the government can help do that, then I think that that's what the government should do.
Thank you. Mr. Haggit. 90 seconds.
Thank you. Interesting question. Strictly from the University of Wyoming standpoint, they can decide for themselves, I guess, what they want to do. If they're receiving government money, then I think the government has a say in their decision. If you're flying on a plane and the person flying the plane is strictly there because they check some boxes, are you comfortable with that? If you're on the operating table and the doctors operating on you are strictly there because they check some boxes, are you comfortable with that? I think people in certain positions should be there because they earned it through their education and their ability to demonstrate their ability to do the job that they were assigned to do or elected to do or whatever. So as far as the government, and when I first heard about this, I thought, what's that got to do with teaching? You know, if let's teach what needs to be taught in the school and not worry about what boxes you check on your pronouns.
Thank you. Mr. Brubaker, 90 seconds.
Well, as far as government being involved in schools, I think is a mistake. The more the government has been involved in the schools, the lower our scores have seemed to gone. I think that the community should have more influence on the schools and local education. Some are very religious, others are more scientific and that. So I disagree with the fact that the government's dictating what our teachers do. As far as education money, I think it could be better spent by putting teachers more in power versus the administration, their government. They know what they're doing. A politician doesn't. It's equity, I mean, all this recent things have kind of baffled me as to what's going on about the sexual things and stuff.
Ms. Cameron, 30 seconds to follow up if you prefer.
Well, I think we all check boxes. That's what all of us do. There's boxes that we all have to check, and that's how we get any job that we get is by checking those boxes. I do agree with you that the government shouldn't dictate education. I agree that money would be better spent with empowering teachers than administrators. Thank you.
Candidates, thank you. Our next question from Chris Clements. Mr. Haggit, you'll be the first to respond. 2 minutes.
Thanks. When the new U.S. House is sworn in this January, what will your legislative priorities be if elected? And how would you folks handle being in the minority if that were to happen?
It's a good question. Being elected, third party being elected is pretty rare, especially in a Republican state like this. But we got to be here to be a choice for people that are tired of the two-party system. But when you enter the House, you take an oath of office first thing, and that's an oath to the Constitution, among other things. So first thing I would do when I come in there is find out who's like-minded, who's there to fulfill their oath of office first and foremost, because that's what the people elected you to be, looking out for the state of Wyoming and to be there for the state and to supply them with the means to better themselves and their state. So first thing I would do is be in there and find out who these people are that are like-minded and want to ensure that that is being taken care of. Thank you.
Mr. Brubaker.
Well, first thing I would do is look at cutting the budget. Being very stiff on cutting most military contractors, the soldiers and the actual enlisted people. I feel like they deserve a good break. because they put their name on the line to protect us. One of the other things I'd look at doing first thing is, besides cutting budget, is trying to cut our taxes and reduce all the taxes, eliminating a lot of the waste. Foreign aid to take a big hit. But it's really, I've thought about this a lot, and it's take me hours to explain, but we have too much waste, too much money going into the non-productive community and punishing the productive community. We've got to keep our enterprise and producers going.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron, 90 seconds.
Number one, first and foremost, is reproductive freedom. In 2022, the U.S. House passed the Women's Health Protection Act. It did not go into the Senate. They didn't do anything with it. So number one is, let's look at that again. However, I don't think that it goes far enough to protect bodily autonomy. I think that speaks to the Fourth Amendment, which states that we the people have the right to be secure in our person. So number one, first and foremost, is to make sure that we protect reproductive freedom and reproductive rights, and we do that through the Fourth Amendment. Number two is health care. I'm going to focus on dental care. Dental care does not go far enough. I have 6.5 million people, I think, in the United States that are not covered in dental care. Number three is workers' rights. We need to look again at minimum wage. Minimum wage is not a livable wage, and many, many people are working with that wage and not able to even find a place to live. Number four is transportation. Our infrastructure, our roads are essential. We must be able to keep our roads, our bridges, and our rails functioning at top capacity. We are an interstate commerce state. And so it's absolutely beneficial that we keep our roads open. Number five is housing and water and infrastructure for water, including sewage and water for our small communities. Those are my top five priorities. I do think we need to look at the budget. I'm a minority in Wyoming already. I'm used to having my voice cut off. So I am going to speak up. Going to Washington, D.C., even though I'll be in the minority, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Haggit, 30 seconds for you if you'd like.
They all make some good points. I would agree with some and disagree with others, but I am a limited government. That's one thing the Constitution Party and the Libertarian Party have in common, is a limited government. The Founding Fathers established it as a very limited government, and the powers of the federal government are limited, and the powers of the states and the people have the rest of it. So I would say that that's the end of my time.
Candidates, thank you. We're back to the top of the order now. My question, Mr. Brubaker, you'll be the first to respond. Immigration and border issues have generated lots of headlines, debate, and conversation nationally this year, including the presidential election. How are these national immigration issues relevant to Wyoming?
Well, from what I understand it, a lot of our tax dollars are going to supporting these immigrants, legal or illegal. And I kind of have the stand that you pay your dues. So if they come here and are productive workers, paying taxes, then I welcome them. But if they're just coming here for a free handout, they're going to end up turning this nation into the same mess that they've tried to run away from. I think if we discontinued a lot of these handouts to them, there'd be far less need for a wall. And if you don't have to build a wall and you don't have handouts, it's a lot cheaper than building a wall and hiring tens of thousands of immigration officers. So if you're not going to come here and pay your dues, stay out. Now, it sounds cruel because they say people will suffer because they don't have these things. But will they be any better off if we collapse this nation and people blame them and turn on them? And this has happened in the past. In fact, in the United States, there's been people shot because somebody thought they were Muslims. I actually talked to one man who had some friends shot in the back, and they weren't Muslims. They were immigrants. And my biggest fear is seeing people turning against these immigrants.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. 90
the-
seconds.
The Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2024 represents a critical bipartisan effort to enhance border security and immigration processes. By reenacting and passing this legislation, we can strengthen our national security, streamline immigration processes, and demonstrate a commitment to addressing global changes, ultimately fostering a safer, more secure environment for all of people living in the United States. Unlike Harriet Hageman, who often advocates for more restrictive measures without comprehensive solutions, I support a balanced approach that enhances border security while also addressing humanitarian needs. Strengthening our borders means more than just enforcement. It's about creating a secure and compassionate future for all who call the United States home. And directly, how does this affect Wyoming? It absolutely affects Wyoming. We do need secure borders, make no mistake about that. But we also need to understand the migration of humanity throughout time. So throughout time, people have been migrating, and we have to be ready to address that in a humanitarian way. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit, 90 seconds.
Could you repeat that question? I want to make sure I got it right.
We're speaking about immigration border issues, generating lots of attention nationally. How are those issues relevant to Wyoming?
Relative to Wyoming, well, I'm sure everybody's heard the statement that every state's a border state. And so I don't think Wyoming's been impacted near as much as a lot of other states. But it's been said that a nation without borders is not a sovereign nation. So you've got to have borders, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But at what point, if I'm sure about the bill you're referencing, there was, I think the limit was 5,000 coming across the day was the trigger point. But affecting Wyoming, you got to look at the big picture. You don't want to have to worry about it after the problems here. You want to solve it at the beginning. So I think the fact that she's flying in private chartered jets, illegal migrants by the tens of thousands is a problem. So we need to start with these NGOs that are paying for all this and find out who these people are and put a stop to it. Because you're not going to solve anything until you stop the bleed.
Mr. Brubaker, 30 seconds more if you'd like.
Well, like I say, I kind of agree with that. You have to stop those people that are funding it, discontinue the government support. Sounds cruel and harsh, but if we become a nation of beggars, we will all starve. If we remain a nation of workers, we will all prosper. So, yeah, we need to discontinue a lot of the support they receive.
Thank you. Our next question from Claire McFarland. Ms. Cameron, you'll be the first to respond. 2 minutes.
As a House delegate, would you work to curb fentanyl importation and trafficking? And can you do it while balancing people's individual rights?
The fentanyl, that's a question I wasn't prepped for. It's killing people, and that's not good. So we have to do what we can to curb and stop the fentanyl being trafficked into the United States. I did not research this. My understanding is it comes from China into Mexico and then Mexico into the United States. So we do need to look at that, and look at what we're going to be able to do to stop that. But again, let's go back to the root causes. Why are people using fentanyl in the first place? Why are we turning to drugs to help us deal with what's happening in our everyday lives? Why is the fentanyl use here in the United States rising? I don't know if it is in Wyoming. Let's address the root causes of why we have drug addiction, why we have alcohol addiction. Let's spend our time, our resources on addressing that. Yes, we do have a fentanyl problem. I'm happy to learn more about it, and I'm happy to talk to people who have direct knowledge and experience with it that can help give me insight on what is the best direction for us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haggit. 90 seconds.
Yeah, so you're right. China imports a lot of the raw ingredients into Mexico, where a lot of the fentanyl is produced, and then it is shipped across the border. That's where border security comes in handy. to try to put a stop to some of this stuff. So I think that it falls right back on having the people necessary to make sure border security is given the priority that it really needs. There's a reason why the union, the Border Patrol Union, 100% endorsed Donald Trump, and that's because they believe that this current administration isn't giving them the help they need to address this issue. And it just takes a small amount of fentanyl to kill a lot of people. And it's been said there's enough fentanyl that comes across the border every year to kill pretty much the entire population. So this is a major problem. And it's not just drug people that are using drugs that are being killed by this. People that they're making these pills look like other pills that are legal. And so people are taking these not knowing they're even taking fentanyl. So it's not really people that are druggies, so to speak, being killed by this. Innocent people, parents are losing children from this, and it starts at the border. It really does.
Thank you. Mr. Brubaker, 90 seconds.
Well, I'd have to agree that there's one place I would look at having more government involvement on the borders and stopping these things. And what is the cause of all this? Living here on the reservation and seeing so many of the residents of the reservation who get addicted to alcohol, they feel worthless, and so they turn to alcohol. And people, when they're being taken care of, they feel worthless and they turn to these drugs and alcohol. Any addiction can be inspired by feeling worthless, and I just feel like a lot of the problem is we need to look at what's creating the market for these drugs, and can we solve it there, and enforcing the borders. But the whole drug thing, I was in Colombia, South America, and when the opiates started coming over from Afghanistan again, it flooded the market and the cocaine went out, annihilated the Colombian coke cartels. Not completely, but slowed them way down. And we have to find the problem. And I don't know if the government's capable of that. I think that turns more back to the family and the community, and making people feel worthwhile again so they aren't turning to things.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron, 30 seconds more if you'd like.
I think this is multifaceted. It is an issue that, thank you for bringing it to my attention again. Not that it wasn't in my attention, it is something that I'm aware of. I think both of these ideas are really good. We need more border security to make sure fentanyl is not coming into the state, and we need more support and social services so people feel more worthwhile and don't feel the need to turn to drugs. There is this fear that there are drugs that people don't know that they're taking it, and that's what's causing some of the overdose. Thank you.
The next question from Chris Clements. Mr. Haggit, you'll be the first to respond. 2 minutes.
Wyoming's ban on gender-affirming care for minors went into effect this past July. Would any of you support a national ban on gender-affirming care? Why or why not? And would you prefer it go further than the ban that Wyoming already has?
You're talking about support, for government support for gender-affirming surgeries? Is that what you're talking about?
That's right, a ban on gender-affirming care.
Okay. I think states need to decide this for themselves. I don't know what to say about people that feel like they're different in a different body, because I don't know anybody in my circle that's like that. So I can't emphasize from first person in contact like that. But just from a macro sense, the government shouldn't be involved in tax dollar money being spent on these surgeries. I know in a recent interview with Bear on Fox News, she said that there was talking about their gender-affirming care for illegal migrants in prison. And I thought to myself, is this how far we went? This is insanity. But to your question, the government should have no say in this. I really think that this is a states. If states wants to supply this as medical treatment for their citizenry, then us, the state legislatures, should decide that for themselves. But I think U.S. government should stay completely out of this.
Thank you, Mr. Brubaker. 90 seconds.
Well, I have to somewhat agree there that this should not be involved in the federal government. It should just be a state issue, possibly even local issue. I know one transgender lady, I don't know her personally, but I followed her. And as long as people are respectful, I don't care how they dress, what surgery they have, but don't have me pay for it. That's not why I go to work, to pay for somebody else's dreams. I'd go to work to pay for my own dreams. My own dreams turn other people's dreams into dreams. But taking money from my pocket to support somebody like that, I don't agree with that. So I'm opposed to any tax dollars going to that. And it's brought up the prisoners. I don't see where, if they're in jail, why should we be paying for their little whims? Sounds, like I say, a little cold-hearted maybe, but you live to what you, within your means.
Thank you. Ms. Cameron, 90 seconds.
Yeah, the U.S. Constitution says in the Fourth Amendment that the people have a right to be secure in their persons. I absolutely think it's a federal issue, not a state issue. It is the federal government's job to protect our individual rights, to protect us from government overreach as well. When we talk about a ban on gender-affirming care, let's not forget that that's going to exclude people who might have early onset menstruation. They have their periods coming early. Denying gender-affirming care means that that person may also not get the care that they need between themselves and their healthcare provider without the doctor there. So early onset menstruation, I had a friend in grade school who developed very early. She developed very large breasts, and it was absolutely essential for her for her back, for her body, for her self-esteem to have a breast reduction. That can be considered gender-affirming care. The government has no business being in that. Again, if somebody is overweight, if a youth is overweight, the decision on how to deal with that youth is not any business of the government's. It's between the parent and the child and their health care provider. So those are all examples of gender-affirming care that cannot and should not be banned. This should not even be an issue. It remains between the child, the parent, and the health care provider, and let's take the government out of it. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit, 30 more seconds if you'd like.
No, she's right. It should be between those three people she mentioned, and the government shouldn't be affirming I know somebody personally that had issues with the drawing quickly, I guess, the lack of but I mean, they took care of it themselves and paid for it. But the government, all I'm saying is the government shouldn't be yay or nay or say you can't, say you can, or whatever. They just say taxpayer money should not be a part of it.
Thank you. The next question is from me. Mr. Brubaker, you'll be first to respond. Election processes and procedures in the United States vary from state to state. Some states have earlier voting options than others. Some have ranked choice voting for primary elections. Others have resisted that trend. Some states insist on hand counting every ballot, while others say automated systems are faster and more accurate. Do you have a preference for any of these options in particular, and do you think a national voting standard would work for this country?
Well, from what I've seen of the ranked voting method, I somewhat like that idea. It would open us up. Instead of having two parties, then we could have multiple parties. And I believe diversity is a big advantage. We'd have too many people that have been in power too long, and with the ranked voting system, it's how many points you get when. So somebody might receive 50% of the ones and somebody else receive 50% of the twos, but the third person could receive 80% or in the middle there and end up being elected, which would be hopefully a pleasant divide between the two powers. We need to have, and as far as automated, I somewhat trust automated. A few things I've seen over the years. It's harder to make a computer cheat than it is to have friends in counting the ballots. And like I say, that was a controversial one I was involved in once. Not in my case, but another case. Libertarians are pushing for the ranked voting system because it does open us up. And so there might be 4 or 5 people on the stage tonight instead of 3 of us. And we'd all be up here trying to win. So I strongly support that system.
Ms. Cameron, 90 seconds.
It's nice to have all 3 of us up here, and I think this is an excellent example of what we'd like to see in the future. We would like to be able to see more than just those 2 parties. At the Wyoming Democratic Convention this year, we had to do hand counting for our committee, our national committee person, and let me tell you what, it did not work well. And it was a small group. So I can't imagine hand counting a bunch of ballots for a bigger group of people. And I really don't see the necessity in that when we're in the 21st century and we have 21st century technology. Chuck Gray has done whatever he was told to do to make sure that our elections were safe and fair in Wyoming, and I think we're all going to hold him to that. I do also want to talk about ranked choice, but let's leave it local. I don't think it needs to be a national voting choice. I think it can stay with local elections because we're seeing so many nonpartisan elections now. County commissioner, sheriff, city council, school board, all of these are really important roles that when we can be nonpartisan and campaign for them, it really represents that we're representing everyone in our community, not just a specific party. I also have heard, and we've also participated in ranked choice within the Wyoming Democratic Party, and it does seem to work. I know there's some pitfalls behind it. There might be a better solution, but I think elections do need to remain local and not have the federal overreach with them. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit, 90 seconds on voting techniques in Wyoming.
I'll just start with ranked choice voting. Like a lot of things, there's good and bad, but ranked choice voting tends to confuse a lot of people. Up in Alaska, they've had, they do ranked choice voting, and it's the same people they know how to work. If you know how to work the system and you're really good at it, then you can not cheat, but you can work out the people that you want not in there. Anyway, it's really complicated, to most people, and I would just stay away from ranked choice voting. Voting needs to be, the states decide for themselves the rules of their voting, and that's the way it should be. That was the way it was meant to be, and that's the way it should be. So the federal government just has some oversight as far as the presidential election, but you have the electors from each state, and it's spelled out in the Constitution, pretty straightforward. But states, they choose how they want to run their own election, and that's the way it should be. And I don't ranked choices. I'm against it.
Mr. Brubaker, 30 more seconds if you wish.
When I first saw a ranked choice, I had to admit it was confusing. And I don't know, I know enough about marketing to see where somebody could go in there and twist things around. But as far as getting somebody new in there, I think it might be a better way, and I strongly believe in a revolving door. The longer they stay there, the more they get stuck wherever they're at and forget the people.
Our next question from Claire McFarland. Ms. Cameron, you're first to respond.
Social media commentary blew up last week with claims that Wyoming's wildfires, many now ongoing, are a conspiracy to obtain lithium, run everyone off their land, or push a narrative for climate change. While experts have told us these are not true, can you explain the rise in theories like these and how the government can help people trust official statements?
The fires are devastating. Please don't make any mistake about that. And anyone who can claim to think that it's some conspiracy theory isn't really looking at what's happening. The fires are impacting our livestock, our wildlife, our beautiful nature. We don't know that we have enough housing for the fire people who are fighting those fires. We know that we could use some, they need a hot meal, they need a shower, they need a place to stay for a couple of hours before they go back out. Conspiracy theories are hurtful, and especially something like this that just is out of the blue. And I don't know that we're going to be able to change it other than making sure that we're educated ourselves and understand that what's being told to us probably isn't the truth. I think that I think I'm going to leave it with that. I know that when we get close to something, when we get close to freedom, when we get close to having this experience that we all want, this opportunity, and we want this change, the closer we get to it, the tighter they're going to hold on. The tighter they're going to grasp, the tighter they're going to come up with things that really don't make sense, and that's because they're panicked. They're afraid. And so for us to just remain resilient, stick to the truth, stick to the honesty, we're going to be able to withstand that holding on so tight, and eventually they're going to have to let go, and we're going to be able to change. So I really hope that nobody believes these conspiracy theories, that you look it up, you look up the information yourself. We hold our lithium precious to us. We absolutely want to be able to do what we can with it, and we wouldn't want anybody, any outside forces, trying to manipulate that for us. Thank you.
Mr. Haggit, 90 seconds.
Yeah, man, a minute and a half is not enough time. How much time? Yeah. Anyway, Chariot Corporation has a huge Black Mountain, where the fire's up there. They own a huge, they just bought from another company. Anyway, I can't remember, billions of tons of this lithium and their precious metals up there where these fires are, and their stock just went up 40%. And I don't know if these fires, talking about conspiracy theories, I don't know how these fires would impact their holdings in this area. So I don't know. I mean, I'm familiar with a conspiracy theory connecting the two, but I don't know what that would be. I don't see the benefit that would. But as far as how come we have so many fires, and how come there a lot of these professional firefighters are saying that they don't have. They're reacting, the fires aren't acting normally. So why is that? But if you really want to do a deep dive into some of this stuff, go to geowatch.org.
Thank you. Mr. Brubaker, 90 seconds.
Well, one of my favorite quotes from a book was from Dune by Frank Herbert, which was, "Fear is the mind killer." So if they get us to panicking and thinking this is the whole thing, we won't go out and do our own research. We'll ignore the facts. I fought forest fires for 8 years, and I know that dry years like this, some of them can act strange, and you can burn a township in a day, and the next fire will burn out 4 hours later. There's a lot to fire behavior, and I'm sure some of the people you were talking about are well versed in that. I was up there a few weeks ago, and it was blowing up pretty good, and on the Trout Creek fire, and the conditions up there everything said there should be fires, but I don't think of anybody going up there and burning that much forest and doing that much just to make their stocks rise. I think somebody's making money off of fear. So no, I don't believe in the conspiracy thing.
Ms. Cameron, 30-second follow-up.
Yeah, so following up on just the climate and the fires, so investing in forest management practices like controlled burns and thinning to combat wildfire risks, and adopting climate resilient practices is absolutely essential to protect our ecosystems, and that's what I will work on going to Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Candidates, we've reached the end of our question period. I thank you all for a good debate. We now move to 2-minute closing statements. Mr. Haggit, you're up first.
Ladies and gentlemen, this country needs everyone to recognize the seriousness of the situation, and some of these questions and answers, you kind of get a sense of that. Things are kind of dire in some areas. We need to come together as a people, as a nation, as citizens that appreciate what this country was founded on. In the preamble, quote, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, unquote. You have heard the enemy is at the gate. I offer to you, the gate has been left open and the wolves are at the table. And we recently we had a B-2 bomb run on Yemen, dropping 2,000 bunker buster bombs in Yemen. The DOD has just reissued Directive 5240.01, codifying its right to use lethal force against its own citizens. Think on that for a second. So much for Posse Comitatus Act. So who is our government fighting a war with? You've heard of MAGA. How about MACA, Make America Constitutional Again? Or how about MASA, Make America States Again? Let's go back to the original understanding of the Constitution as a compact among the states that assert state sovereignty. And we need to really concentrate on the 10th Amendment and get states back to have the power that they seem to have relinquished to the federal government. I have a Facebook page called Haggit for Freedom. It's 4 is spelled out, it's not the letter 4. And my campaign website is haggitforhouse.com. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Ms. Cameron, 2-minute closing statement.
Mr. Haggit and I have a lot in common, as do Mr. Brubaker and I. The role of government is explicitly written in the U.S. Constitution. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, ensure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution. I wholeheartedly pledge my allegiance to the United States Constitution, the people, and the land of Wyoming. We, the people, are the bedrock of our cherished democracy and vibrant republic. This remarkable document empowers us, the people, to govern ourselves with unwavering resolve. In our democracy, every voice matters, every vote counts, and together we shape our collective destiny. As a republic, we exercise our freedom to choose elected officials through fair and secure elections, ensuring that our government reflects our values and our aspirations. With deep pride, I embrace the sacred commitment, honoring the ideals of self-governance and representation that define our nation. A vote for me, and together we will stand united in upholding the principles that safeguard our liberty and justice for all. A vote for me is a vote for Wyoming. A vote for a Democrat in Wyoming this election cycle, make no mistake about it, is a vote for democracy. Thank you.
Mr. Brubaker, 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Well, like I say, I see us all running in fear and not thinking of what we're doing. The Constitution is the rule book for our government. It's not we call it a democracy, but it's actually a republic, and there's laws in the Constitution that limit our government. State rights is very important. I actually heard one person say that the Civil War was the biggest violation of our Constitution because it denied states' rights. That's a double-edged sword argument, and I'm not going to go there. Because it did free the slaves. But the thing is, we've been working at invading our Constitution almost since day one. There were marches in Washington, D.C. when Washington was president. Sometimes I have to ask, is everybody afraid of liberty? Do we fear having to be responsible for our own actions? We keep asking the government to take care of us. We keep spending more. I'm diabetic, and I know when I get the feeling low, if I eat a donut, I feel a lot better, but it doesn't help my health. These stimulus packages, this involvement in the government, same thing. We're losing legs and limbs to our disease. And I have to ask, what have we done to this once great nation built on liberty and ambition? I just keep seeing it going away in my lifetime.
Candidates, thank you. Panelists, thank you. This reminder to viewers, our U.S. Senate debate starts at 8 p.m., about 3 minutes from now. Please stay with us on Wyoming PBS.
Okay, where's he taking our speakers at? I guess he's up there, isn't he? Yeah. You getting the speakers? You know how to take that off.
Please bring your water bottle down. There's a spot for it. Very good. Thank you, sir. I've never missed public. One time we did it in the studio. Last time when I was up 60, we did it in Sheridan. But I always do the PBS event. Always have. Never missed. So it's going to be just what you want. Okay. Hi, Senator Steve. Nice to meet you. Put your hand up real quick here. I don't want to look like I'm going either. Sure. 1 minute. 1 minute. Thank you so much.
Good evening and welcome to Wyoming PBS for the 2024 U.S. Senate debate for the state of Wyoming. I'm Steve Peck, Senior Producer for Public Affairs at Wyoming PBS. The debate is coming to you tonight from the Robert A. Peck Arts Center on the campus of Central Wyoming College in Riverton, and we thank the college and the president of CWC, Dr. Brad Tyndall, for hosting this event. Tonight's debate is being aired live statewide on Wyoming PBS and Wyoming Public Radio and streamed live on Wyoming PBS YouTube channel. The debate will be available afterward as well as on-demand video online at Wyoming PBS. And the U.S. Senate portion of our debate tonight is being carried live on C-SPAN as well. We make mention at this point that while Wyoming PBS and Wyoming Public Radio and its parent, Wyoming Public Media, have similar names, they are independent, unaffiliated organizations. Our thanks to Joanna Kale, the Chief Executive Officer of Wyoming PBS, for welcoming remarks before our live audience tonight. And the debate is being coordinated for television technically by Wyoming PBS production manager Kyle Nikoloff and his production team. Our station has been organizing, hosting, and airing statewide campaign debates for more than 30 years as part of what we view as a mission to inform and engage the people of Wyoming in civic citizenship. That mission's important, and we take it seriously here at Wyoming PBS. Joining me as panelists for the debate this evening are two experienced and knowledgeable Wyoming journalists, Claire McFarland, crime and courts reporter for Cowboy State Daily, and Chris Clements, state government reporter for Wyoming Public Radio. Now for tonight's ground rules, which the participating candidates have agreed to ahead of time. The debate is scheduled to last no more than 60 minutes. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement in alphabetical order. Candidates will be questioned in order by the panelists. Each candidate being asked a new question will have 2 minutes to respond. The other candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to the same question. The original candidate then will have 30 seconds for rebuttal or follow-up if desired. Panelists may ask follow-up questions if the candidates fall off topic. The moderator, at his discretion, may allow a candidate additional time to respond if the candidate has been attacked personally. I beseech us not to have to go there. We urge candidates to respond to the topics presented by the questions we ask them. The debate will be concluded with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate, speaking in reverse order from their opening statements. The candidates can see a green, yellow, and red timing light from their positions on stage. The yellow light will illuminate when the candidate has 30 seconds remaining for response time. Candidates must end their responses when the light turns red, and they will hear an alarm at that point as well. The timer for the debate tonight is Christina George of Wyoming PBS. Now it's time to introduce the candidates for the U.S. Senate debate. Closest to the panelist table is U.S. Senator John Barrasso, nominee of the Republican Party. Next to Senator Barrasso is Scott Morrow, the nominee of the Democratic Party. Candidates, ready to begin. Senator Barrasso, you begin. 2-minute opening statement.
Well, thank you. Thanks to all the viewers. Thanks for all the supporters of Wyoming Public Television and Radio. Wonderful to be with you. Thanks so much also for allowing me to serve as your physician for so many years in Wyoming, as a state senator, and now as the United States Senator. You know, when I first ran for the Senate, I said I would show up, I would stand up, I would speak up, and then I'd shut up. I would show up for votes in Washington, and I'd show up all around the state of Wyoming every weekend. And then I'd stand up. I'd stand up for Wyoming people and for our values. And then I'd speak up in Washington and in Wyoming on the issues that are concerning us. And then finally I'd shut up. Because a job of a United States Senator is to listen more than they talk. There's a wonderful book that I often refer to, and my friend Senator Enzi talked about it as well for our many years we worked together in the Senate, and it's called Hidden America, From Coal Miners to Cowboys, an extraordinary exploration of the unseen people who make this country work. Those are the people of Wyoming who I fight for every day in the United States Senate. You know, I travel the state extensively. Last week I traveled to a couple of schools, one in Thermopolis, the other in Sheridan. I was also in Sheridan to visit the firefighters on the front line in that fire in the Bighorn Mountains. The students say, what's the job of a United States Senator? You know, part of it is voting in Washington on votes that are important to the state of Wyoming. Much more important than that is the job of protecting and promoting Wyoming. Our jobs, our economy, our environment, our people, our special places, our resources, and our values. And there are people in Washington right now who don't understand Wyoming and are a threat to the future of our state. Those are the people that I am fighting every day on behalf of the people of Wyoming. I want to continue that fight, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow, 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. I'm grateful you showed up, John. You know, you didn't have to. You're the incumbent. The incumbent for the House didn't show up. She didn't have to, so thank you very much. I also want to thank Mr. Peck He's been communicating with me, so I knew what was going on, which is kind of helpful when you're going to a debate. I want to thank all these people that took time out of their busy days to come and listen to John and I debate the issues, and I hope we debate them. I would like to tell you a little something about myself. I'm going to be asking for your vote, just like John did, and the reason why is I believe I've earned it. I've earned a chance to work in the United States Senate, serving the people of Wyoming through impactful work required of a U.S. Senator. John and I agree, we need to keep our lookout and take care of our workers, our energy sector. All those things are very important, and we are in agreement on that, which I find amazing because we're supposed to disagree about everything. I'd like to preface the debate with the promise that I'll always be dedicated to the facts, the truth, honesty, and transparency. I think that's mandatory for anybody in public office. I'm just going to work in that manner. In 1975, I learned the true value of dedicating myself to this action. I started Amazing Family, and 8 years later, I had 5 kids. I turned out to be a single parent of 5 children. I started at the United States Postal Service after a lifetime of wrestling, martial arts, struggles, and setbacks. I know full well how it feels to be literally and figuratively knocked down. But I also know how to look up, get up, and never give up. I ask for your vote.
Thank you. The first question is from me, Senator Barrasso. You'll be the first to respond. Repeated ongoing surveys show historically low public approval for Congress and for many public institutions in general. What could be done, both by the public and by Congress, to improve the standing of Congress among the American people?
You know, I was watching the previous debate where we talked about social media and what happens with these devices in our pockets, which can be very, very polarizing. I think it'd be better if we just focused on the issues rather than personalities. There are issues that really do unite us. There's a lot of bipartisan work that's being done in the Senate. Very little of it ever gets reported in the news because people want to see the fights. I mean, that's kind of the way it tends to be. What gets reported mostly are people disagreeing with each other instead of the work that we do in a bipartisan way. So I think it would be much better if we focused on that, the issues, the policies. There are clearly going to be debates and disagreements on policies, but as long as we keep it civil as we're going to do tonight, and you did in the first debate tonight, I think it's better. And I think that what we see in Wyoming, where people actually get to know the governor, their local representatives, the senators. I mean, I remember years and years ago, somebody said, if you're here and you don't know they're having a chance to meet the governor or the senators in the first year you moved to the state of Wyoming, that's on you. It's not on them because they're available and we are here in Wyoming.
Ms. Morrow, 90 seconds.
Will you repeat the question, please?
The question was regarding historically low public approval rating for Congress and other public institutions and what Congress itself and you as a senator might do to improve that situation.
I think that the promise I made to everybody watching to be transparent, honest, forthright, and factual, and to make decisions based on the truth and our reality will help a lot. When people like the president that he endorsed for this election cycle, a convicted criminal, make stuff up, you know, all the time, every day, it does not help with the POTUS or the Congress. And when you endorse somebody like that, I think you have a responsibility to say, whoa, 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 you know, that's not right. You need to stand up. And you need to say that Haitians are not eating dogs and cats. No sharks in the water and batteries in the water. That's nonsense. I would like to see a little more transparency in Congress. John and I agree that people only see the bad things on TV because they don't watch C-SPAN. If you watch C-SPAN, I can watch you debate everything. I've watched all your speeches, and it fully informs an individual. So I think We need to be more transparent and encourage people to watch C-SPAN and to educate themselves. We can't do it for them. They have a civil responsibility to pay attention, and I think Congress's ratings will go up because John's right. They do a lot of good debate there.
Senator Barrasso, 30-second follow if you'd like.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Claire McFarland. Mr. Morrow, you'll be the first to respond for 2 minutes.
A federal judge last year blocked the White House and other federal agencies from pushing for censorship of Americans on social media. The discovery in the case revealed that the White House and other federal officials demanded Facebook censor everything from vaccine-critical posts to memes, while Biden's press secretary called publicly for penalties if social media outlets wouldn't comply. Though the case appeared on track to give Americans a judicial definition of government censorship for the social media age, the U.S. Supreme Court turned it away for lack of standing. Were the executive branch's actions justified, and how would you work to address this issue?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge supporter of free speech. That's a foundation of our Constitution that we all know about and live by. Secondly, I didn't get a chance to review the transcripts in that court hearing. A lot of times, you know, you'll hear this happened in the court, that happened in the court, but if you don't know the evidence presented, in this country, in every court, we have rules of evidence, and those rules make sure the evidence is credible and substantial. So without that, it's hard to comment, but if the SCOTUS turned it down, I'm amazed with this particular Supreme Court, but again, I don't know the case, but I can tell you that I think it's a bit of an overreach for the executive to be trying to censor anybody, including these big companies. I'm not happy that Facebook let somebody steal my Facebook page and they're selling Bitcoins now and I can't do anything about it. So yeah, I'd like to see that changed, but not by the executive. I think that Congress has a responsibility to address this, to get all the facts before they make a decision and to proceed accordingly.
Senator Barrasso, 90 seconds.
You know, we talked about free speech, freedom of the Constitution, and our rights for freedom of speech, and I'm for that. There are a lot of concerns that I hear all around Wyoming and I see in Washington in who posts what, who controls the media, who has impacts on things. You know, when I was growing up, we all kind of got the same news, whether it was ABC, NBC, CBS, but now you have so many different outlets and the devices in our pockets, and the impact of social media, the impact of big business related to social media has huge impacts on that, which leads to some of the things you asked about in the previous debate about how news can be moved in wrong directions and fake things can be believed. You'd mentioned things about the fire that was happening here and how what I thought was actually fake information gets out there and how it perpetrates itself. I mean, these are the problems we see, and with artificial intelligence, my concern is it's going to get worse. When Congress tries to legislate on these issues, we got to make sure we don't impede the free speech of the American people. But these are concerns that I hear about when I talk to students at the university. I was there a couple of weeks ago. When I go to talk to students at school, what can we get? How do we know what is truly the facts when we see what you just said coming out of the White House telling social media and information that couldn't get out, even though it was true, but the Biden administration didn't want it out.
Mr. Morrow, 30-second follow if you'd like.
Well, I don't think anybody can disagree with that. In fact, I support what John was saying. I don't know about AI and all that. I hope they don't start coming after me because I'm running against you. It's pretty bad, but I'm not sure you can censor it. And so I agree that in the Senate, we need to work at that. John has introduced a few bills in this 118th Congress, and then the House can take them up. But really, in the Senate, we can introduce bills and we consider what the House did on these issues, but the House has the purse strings.
Thank you. Our next question from Chris Clements of Wyoming Public Radio. Senator Barrasso, you'll respond for 2 minutes.
Recently, you, Senator Barrasso, and Representative Harriet Hageman sponsored companion bills in Congress that would convey the Pilot Butte power plants to Midvale Irrigation District. The power plant is located within the boundaries of the Wind River Reservation. Some Eastern Shoshone tribal members have said they were never consulted by Wyoming's federal leadership about this conveyance. In December of last year, you called this deal a, quote, win-win situation for the people, for American people. Senator, do you still think it's a win-win situation given that the Eastern Shoshone tribe has said they oppose it? And would either of you do anything differently if the circumstances that led to this happened again?
No, I think it is a win-win for the people. It's, it's here in Fremont County. It's a hydropower plant. It's about the size of 1.5 football fields. So I know some people have called it a land grab. It's a fairly small piece of land. There's a federal building on there, a power plant that's ready to be destroyed, paid for by the government, because it's been basically not in use for the last 15 years. And the people who live right there said, we'll be happy to put the money in, get it back into use, and make sure that the power from there can be used locally. Now, we understood that the Bureau of Reclamation was going to talk to the local, the Eastern Shoshone, and they didn't. I understand that they didn't get taught. I think that was a mistake. I think they should have been informed earlier on. But no, I do believe it's a win-win to use the energy, to not have the government have to pay the money to destroy this. Right now, it's taxpayer money that's going to be used that way. This is actually making something that has not been in use for 15 years, put it back to functional use for the benefit of the people right here in Fremont County.
But how do you react to the fact that the tribe has said they oppose this deal?
Yeah. Well, there are pretty much anything that you do, there's somebody that supports, somebody that opposes, and based on the size, the location, and the use, I think it is appropriate, and I continue to support it.
Mr. Morrow, 90 seconds for your response.
I just had an opportunity today to talk to the executive secretary of the Shoshone people and the twice as large Arapaho country that lives in the same reservation where we subjugated them, we being, the white government. I don't think anything should be done on a reservation. You steal somebody's land and then you put them on a reservation, then you start doing what you want. It reminds me of when Jeff Flake and the late great John McCain, I love that man, decided to steal some Apache sacred land and turn it over to a foreign mining company. That we just can't be doing that. We should have had the councils of both the Arapaho people and the Shoshone people make this decision and then brought it forward. And that's what I said in my comments to this. Of course, the government always lets you give comments. If you're interested, that's your only say in the matter, unless you're a senator like John. And in my comments, I said we need to let the native peoples, the First Peoples, make this decision, and then we'll back it up with legislation. And I was told the same thing to Representative Hageman, and I got no response.
Senator, 30-second follow-up, if you
Well,
like.
the power plant has been there and just sitting vacant for 15 years, not being used. The local people want to activate it again, are willing to put the resources in. The energy is a valuable use, and I still support the program.
Thank you. The next question is from me. Mr. Morrow, you'll be the first to respond. It's been another rough wildfire season in Wyoming, with hundreds of thousands of acres burned, major property damage, wildlife losses, air quality dangers, impacts on Wyoming's vital summer tourism season. Wildfire management comprises a mix of local and state and federal resources. Are you satisfied with wildfire management in Wyoming? And if not, how could it be improved?
Well, anything can be improved. We've got two different wildlife management considerations here. One is performed by the state for the Wyoming state lands, which is 53% of the land in our state. The other 47% is owned by the federal government. And they'll be the ones, the feds will determine how they're going to manage that land. I feel so bad for the farmers, that we had numerous farms that just burned right down from these fires, and the smoke that Mr. Peck was talking about affects me. I have to start doing puffers and everything from the smoke. It literally almost kills me. So yeah, we can manage better. I know that by my brother's dome home in Perry Park, Colorado, they do a great job of managing. They go in and they trim all the trees, and then they take the wood and they give it to people that need wood for their fireplaces, and they really reduce the fire danger doing that. And you can also, I don't know about the raking leaves things that the convicted criminal he endorsed said we should just sweep the leaves. I don't think that's the solution, but definitely we can do a better job of trimming out the trees and recycling it, letting people use it, and keeping an eye on stuff. You know, they've got cameras in Colorado on all these big peaks where they can spot a fire like that. The sooner you get to that fire, the better. So yes, we need to be careful about keeping these lands in good shape to avoid the fires, and we need to observe them better so we can get to them quicker. Thank you.
Senator Barrasso, 90 seconds.
Well, Friday I was up there at the Fire Command Center out of Dayton and Ranchester, Wyoming. You have 1,000 firefighters working very hard. He's absolutely right. When you talk about the difference between state land and federal land, I had our state forester, Kelly Norris, twice come to Washington to testify in the Energy Committee, where I'm the senior member of that committee. And she talked about the difference between the way those lands are managed. Federal lands versus state lands, which she's in charge of, and private lands. And the difference between night and day, and due to lawsuits and environmental extremist acting, it is much harder to protect the lands that is the federal, because they don't let us do the kind of management of those lands. And actually, if you take a look at it from the air, you can tell managed lands, state land, from federal lands, which is much more likely to burn. These firefighters are doing a tremendous job. The communities have come together. The students in Ranchester, Dayton, Sheridan are helping. People are volunteering in amazing ways. But the perimeter of that fire was over 200 miles around. And the containment, they had about 30 miles contained, but containment, they say the percentage of containment, it's how many miles the perimeter is and how many miles they have contained. So with 30 miles of 200 is only 15%. They have this great new technology with drones, and in addition to the slurry lines that come in and drop water, they have these drones with like little ping pong balls with glycerin cabinets in it that they can see with infrared what is happening there, and where it looks like there's going to be a hot spot, they can drop it and put out the fire. The technology is amazing. They still have a long way to go, and this weather is helping a lot.
Mr. Morrow, 30 seconds to follow up.
Again, you're right, John, and I'm sorry I missed out on the private lands, because there's not really a lot we can do about that unless we want Big Brother to start getting involved in your personal private property. I don't think you want to do that. I don't want to do that. As far as the technology he was talking about, very good thing to employ. We need to employ that more. And then to talk about those firefighters, oh my goodness. You know, they risk their lives, they don't get paid enough, and they really work hard. It's not an easy job. I've got a couple relatives that have been firefighters, and it's hard.
Thank you. Our next question from Claire McFarland of Cowboy State Daily. Senator Barrasso, you'll respond first for 2 minutes.
Republican delegates often complain about government spending, but debts and deficits have continually risen under their watch. To fix that would require doing unpopular things. What will you do to cut government spending?
Well, first I want to finish with something we talked about, the firefighters. We're working in a bipartisan way, because we talked about things that don't get reported on in a bipartisan way, to make sure we have the permanent increase in the funding and the pay for those firefighters. Now, with regard to the funding, we have $35 trillion in debt in this country right now, $35 trillion. We, I believe, ought to have a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. Wyoming families have to live within their means. The state of Wyoming, I was in the state legislature for 5 years, served with Steve's dad. Eli Bebout, who's here in the audience, he was president of the Senate and speaker of the House. We balance our budget every year. We need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. We also need to look at Medicare, Social Security, the mandatory spending issues that continue to grow. There was something called the Bowles-Simpson Commission. Al Simpson, who's probably watching tonight from Cody, Wyoming, was involved with that. This was during the Obama administration. That should have been adopted in a bipartisan way. You have to have bipartisanship to solve something this big. I think we ought to start with a constitutional amendment to balance the budget.
Mr. Morrow.
Okay, I guess we finally found an area of disagreement. It's to be expected. We've been doing good. But Medicare and Social Security are not on budget, okay? When you cash in the special treasury bonds that make up the $2.8 trillion Social Security Trust Fund for people like me that are on Social Security, I don't know if you're collecting yours yet, that money is going to last for a while. Now, we do need to look ahead and do something about it, but cutting it isn't the answer. And secondly, you know, I hear about budget deficits, and you know, every president in the United States, every one except for Andrew Johnson, presided over deficit spending, and it wasn't really the president. It's you guys in Congress that are spending that money. When you give a tax break to mostly the rich, and my taxes go up, you know, you establish a $2 or $3 trillion deficit. Actually, tax cuts are spending, if you look at it the right way, when you look at the actual accounting numbers on the budget of the United States. And I don't see it as big a deal as everybody else, but the 7 or 8 trillion that the guy he endorsed for president put on the budget, put on the credit card during his term is the highest ever. And it was 1/4 of all the deficits in 250 years, almost 250 years. So I can't really take John at his word when he's concerned about deficits. I think it's something to take a close look at, but not to freak out about.
Senator, 30 seconds to
As a
follow
matter
up.
of principle, it shouldn't surprise anyone that I want to keep taxes low. And when we were able to cut taxes, as Mike Enzi would say, you know, revenue actually went up because there was more productivity, but spending went up more than revenue up. So our problem isn't that we're taxed too little, it's that we spend too much. And we talk frequently, Mike and I worked every year, introduced his penny plan. If you could just, you know, you can't get rid of this department of government or that department of government, but there is waste in every department of government. If you cut 1%, I think we need to get 2% now, but the overall debt is what's crushing us right now, and the interest on the debt is unsustainable.
Mr. Morrow?
Just very quickly with the 30 seconds or whatever I get. I'm not sure what you would cut, but please, if you get reelected, don't be cutting my Medicare and my Social Security. That's my constituents as president of the retiree chapter. We depend on that to live. Let's cut something else. Maybe we could cut a few $100 billion out of the $1 trillion, almost $1 trillion we give to war and so forth in the DOD budget. You vote for that NDAA every year, and that adds to the deficit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's move
Thank you
on.
for the extra time.
Our next question from Chris Clements. Mr. Morrow, you'll be first to respond for 2 minutes.
Many of Wyoming's leaders, Governor Gordon, Senator Lummis, the chair of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, praised the University of Wyoming Athletics Department's decision to forfeit a women's volleyball game with San Jose State University. The forfeit happened after news stories about San Jose allegedly having a transgender athlete on the rival team, on its team. Specifically, how do you folks think supporting this forfeit will help the people of Wyoming?
It won't. It's a political stunt. It's something for the news media. I don't know who this athlete was, but I can tell you that transgender folks are afflicted with gender dysphoria. It's a DSM-5 psychiatric disorder. It's hurting them, and that's why they do that. And whether that changes the competition or not, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you, I'm getting tired of Big Brother getting in between doctors and women's health care, people with gender dysphoria, disabled people. I think that we should leave medical treatment plans to the doctors and the patient. We have no business, government has no business getting involved, and neither does the University of Wyoming.
Senator.
First, you mentioned the NDAA in your previous answer. That's the National Defense Authorization Act. I do support that because as a matter of principle, in addition to wanting to keep taxes low, I want to keep families safe and America strong. And right now, the amount of money spent on the interest on the debt is higher than we're spending on defense in this country. And that's a real problem that I have concerns about for our security. With regard to this forfeiture of the game by the University of Wyoming, which was your question, I supported that forfeiture. I have 2 daughters involved in sports. For everything you said, I want to know about justice for these young women who are trying to compete in sports, and to say that a biologic woman needs to compete against a biologic man, I just don't agree. And the people in Wyoming, and I talk, you go to University of Wyoming, you talk ahead of time, you walk around, talk to people during the tailgating. The people of Wyoming are fully in support in terms of the letters and the calls that are coming into my office, support of the women athletes not having to compete against male athletes.
Mr. Morrow, 30-second reply. If you'd
Thank
like.
you. I think you're right that you should listen to your constituents. That's all I've ever wanted from you. And if the constituents are saying that, even I stated my opinion based on what I consider to be reality, I would have to change. My responsibility is to the constituents. not to my own personal feelings or opinions about a particular issue. So if that's the case, then yeah, we got to let Wyoming do it. I'd rather see the student union make that type of decision, and maybe even get the volleyball team involved.
Thank you. Next question is for me, and Senator Barrasso, you'll be the first to respond. With the recent groundbreaking of the Natrium nuclear power project in Kemmerer, Wyoming's about to add nuclear energy to its energy profile. Congress plays a role in energy policy. Is nuclear power a good idea for Wyoming and the nation in our ever-changing energy mix?
Well, I think it is. Because in Wyoming, our economy so much is energy dependent. It's economic development, which is energy driven, and we need all the sources of energy. Coal, oil, gas. We have massive uranium supplies here in Wyoming, and I was just able to get a bipartisan bill signed into law by the president banning the import of uranium from Russia. I think that's a big thing to help our state, help our country, help our national security. For those concerned about climate, right now, nuclear power is the largest source of energy production in the country, 20% of electricity from nuclear, which has no carbon. And the opportunity of what's happening in Kemmerer, Wyoming, I've been there a number of times, talked to the people in the community who are very supportive of it. They're using a retired coal-fired power plant, and the transmission lines are already there, and they're going to put it right on that centered area. So jobs can stay in that area, businesses will come into the area as well, and I think it's a good idea for Wyoming. And you're right, in terms of what government involved, it is a public-private partnership. There's government investment, there's additional private investment, all in the effort, because we need all of the power. The demands for energy in this country 5 years from now is like adding a whole new California to the grid. I mean, that's what the regulatory agencies who look at energy say we need. And it's because of data centers, it's because of AI, crypto, all of these things need much, much more energy, the electrification that's happening around the country. So I think doing this, and we would be the lead one, the ground has been broken, the work is being done, and Wyoming will once again be leading the nation. Wyoming is America's energy powerhouse, and we need to use it all, and we have it here in Wyoming.
Mr. Morrow, 90 seconds on nuclear
Thank you.
power.
We agree on some stuff again, although Wyoming provides 2% of the nation's energy. Part of that is because places like Kemmerer, Thermopolis, you were just there. Here in this town, the oil and coal and gas jobs are going away because we're running out. Even one of your contributors, the Petroleum Association of Wyoming, says we got 15 years left. That's it. So we do need these types of projects. Now, I'm not a nuclear physicist, so I can't tell you about tritium, the half-life, the waste that it's going to create, what we're going to do with the waste, and all those concerns a lot of people have. But I love the idea that the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Job Enhancement Act you voted against is supplying almost $2 billion to that experimental nuclear plant. And Bill Gates and one of his charities is providing the rest. And I'm grateful that they're doing that, and I'm grateful that we're giving it a try, but let's not think that that's going to be the end of it, because we need to look at some of these other issues that I've been unable to determine because nobody knows. It's an experimental plant.
Senator?
Follow up to what he had said. I think everybody in Wyoming is an environmentalist in the standpoint we want to all make energy as clean as we can, as fast as we can, and do it in ways that don't raise costs for American families. And when he talks about petroleum products and running out, we have plenty. The federal government just wants us to keep it in the ground, but they'll be happy to go to Venezuela or let Iran export oil to China. And we have it here, we need to use it here. We have American energy resources. We are America's energy powerhouse in Wyoming, and I think we need to continue to use it all.
Thank you. Next question from Claire McFarland. Mr. Morrow, you'll be the first to respond for 2 minutes.
On August 14th, there was a shooting on the Wind River Indian Reservation. Scanner traffic indicated that the shooter was on the run, but for a month before the suspect was caught and charged, the FBI would not answer questions about whether a violent crime suspect, was on the loose in the community. This is not a one-off. Sadly, this unwillingness to inform the community of the reservation of the dangers that may be among it is a hallmark of federal policing in this area. Will you work to remedy this dire shortfall in police transparency, and how?
Okay, I didn't quite understand. Did you say this happened on the reservation?
Yes,
Wind River?
there is a dire shortage of police transparency on the Wind River Indian Reservation.
Okay, again, as much as we can, I'd like to see the reservation address the issue, and if they need funding, I think that Congress can help out with that. And we do owe the First Peoples that based on our past behavior. As far as the FBI goes, it's been their policy for the 70 years I've been alive that when they're in the middle of an investigation, they're not going to tell you anything because it can sabotage their investigation. As far as warning people, the Tribal Council, the Business Council of both the Arapaho Nation and the Shoshone Nation should have been a part of that. And I agree that the FBI, when we have a danger like that with a dangerous person on the run, that we should let people know without interfering with the investigation. Now, it may be a tricky thing, but it can be done if they want to do it. I'm hearing from you, based on those circumstances you enumerated, that they probably didn't really want to share the information, and they probably could have if they would just put out a little bit of effort. But you know, these law enforcement agencies get into a thing that they do, a regular structure, and it's hard to break them out of that. And yes, we need more funding for law enforcement on the Wind River Reservation and every reservation in the United States.
Senator, 90 seconds.
Well, no, I agree with you. I think that there's a real problem. There should have been much more transparency there. There needs to be transparency. You know, I was at one point on the Indian Affairs Committee in the Senate and chairman of that committee. We had hearings here on the Wind River Reservation. The reservation is about the size of the state of Connecticut, and you take a look at how many people live here, and to try to recruit and retain police officers, which is a little different than the transparency issue that you asked about, but to your point about making sure we have enough to be able to hire that many, have the people that you could recruit to come here, to stay here, and to do the job in an area that's that vast continued to be a challenge, and not just on this reservation, on reservations around the country. So we had hearings about that, want more transparency. I mean, there's missing people, there's so many issues about crime and issues related to the reservations in the nation, and certainly here in Central Wyoming.
Mr. Morrow, 30 seconds if you'd like it.
Well, John's right again. It's not easy to train and hire good individuals to do police work. We always get that 3 to 4% who are very corrupt and dangerous as police officers. And it sounds like, according to what you said, that it's maybe even worse on the Wind River Reservation. I'm really grateful that you mentioned the entire United States. As a senator, we do have that responsibility also, in addition to watching out for our Wyomingites. So yeah, we need more. Can we fund it? Can we hire them? Can we find them?
Thank you. Next question from Chris Clements of Wyoming Public Radio. Senator Barrasso, you'll be the first respondent.
Wyoming's federal leaders, including you, Senator, recently called for answers from Attorney General Merrick Garland about what his department is doing to prosecute and investigate instances of non-citizens voting in elections. Data show that cases of non-citizens casting ballots in the U.S. are exceedingly rare. Given that, would you say it's a good idea to devote time and energy to this subject? Why or why not?
Oh, I think one of the greatest threats to our democracy right now, and people talk about threats to democracy, is the issue of the fact that we have over 10 million illegal immigrants that have come into this country since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris went to the White House. 10 million. Are all of them voting? I believe some of them are. And the loophole to get in there is that sometimes you need an identification card. If you go in some states where they will allow someone to get a driver's license who's not a citizen of the United States, and when you apply for the driver's license, they say, would you like to register to vote? That is the pathway to voter registration for illegal immigrants. Not happening in Wyoming, but it's happening in a number of places. And then we have laws that say you shouldn't be able to vote if you can't vote if you're an illegal immigrant. The Democrats have blocked a bill that we just had to say, look, this has to be the federal law. No voting by illegal immigrants. You know, right now the illegal immigrants are counted in the census. Now you say, why would that matter? Well, people want resources to move to those cities. But you take the total look of the population of California, and if you add all the illegal immigrants that are there, That's how they determine the electoral college of this country. How many electoral votes does California get versus the 3 that we have in Wyoming? And if you have a lot of illegal immigrants there and they have more of a population, they're going to have more electoral votes and they'll take them away from other states. So I believe it is a big problem, not just with that individual illegal immigrant voting, but also with the way, and every Democrat voted in the Senate to say, good, count all those illegal immigrants in the census. Oh yeah, well, it may benefit us in the long run as it shifts the electoral college to the states that act as sanctuary states for illegal immigrants.
Mr. Moore, 90 seconds.
Yeah, there was not a single Democrat that voted to allow undocumented human beings who aren't citizens of the United States to vote. That just simply didn't happen. It was a poison pill that you guys put on the table, and so they voted against it. I don't blame them. I would have voted against it too. As far as the number of undocumented people in the country, according to the people that should know, DHS and the Border Patrol, we got 6.5 million. And of those, about 4.2 million are accounted for. In other words, they have legal status. There's a difference between somebody who has legal status and somebody who's illegal. We've got about 1.6 undocumented folks that got past our Border Patrol, according to the Border Patrol. In Wyoming, for example, since John got in the Senate way back, what was it, 2007? We've had about 5,000 Wyomingites who are undocumented, and we have the same amount today. It hasn't changed. I think this is all to do about nothing. During Trump, we had 11.5 million so-called illegal people in the country, and now it's down to 10.9 under the current administration. So to say that the Biden administration is doing all this stuff is simply disingenuous. It doesn't comport to the facts.
I've been to the border about 7 or 8 times, and each time I go, I see what's happening at the border, people coming across illegally from all around the world. People are being attracted because they're getting free health care, free housing, free food, free cell phones, free debit cards that are loaded with cash. People are being drawn to this country illegally. The border was essentially closed when President Trump left office. President Biden came in, signed 94 executive orders, throwing open the borders, inviting people here to the point that 10 million illegal immigrants have come since he's been in the White House. And my worry is that they're all going to get counted for the census, and some will be voting.
We're nearing the end of our allotted time. This could be the final question. If the candidates would agree to limit their answers to perhaps 30 seconds, we might have time for one more question beyond this. Much of the work members of Congress do comes in committee rooms, reviewing information, testimony on many topics in the public interest. Senator, brief us quickly when it's your turn to answer on your committee work. And Mr. Morrow, you'll be the first respondent. What committees or topic areas of particular interest for committee work would interest you?
Okay, well, I haven't been to Congress. I've never been to Congress. I'm a guy off the street, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to get to Congress. To go back to what he said is patently false. Nobody's getting cell phones. It's not a citizen. Nobody's getting free housing. Nobody's getting SNAP. You have to be a U.S. citizen, and they watch that very closely. I've got friends tried to get SNAP, and it's hard. As far as committees go, I've picked my committees. I want to work with seniors. I want them to have the Social Security Fairness Act that he won't even co-sign, despite my hundreds of calls asking Gregory to please let him know I need him to do that. I want to be on the Committee for Clean Energy. They're not called that. I'm calling them that. And I'd like to be on the Labor Committee. That's my expertise as a Director of Industrial Relations. And as a citizen, I'm tired of people making $2.13 an hour in Wyoming for 28 years. It's untenable.
Senator, committees.
Well, the one I focus so much on is energy. We've had somebody on the Energy Committee from Wyoming since we became a state in 1890. And I try to bring people from Wyoming to Washington to testify. So I mentioned Kelly Norris a couple of times, has come to testify. She's our state forester. I think Terry Woolfolk, County Commissioner for Washakie County, to talk about some problems they were having up there. I had the governor to come back to Washington to talk about the Endangered Species Act and issues we're dealing with the gray wolf and with the grizzly bear, and our efforts to get them off of the endangered species list. All of these things is to put the wisdom of Wyoming in front of the Congress, and I'm going to continue to do that if I'm reelected to the United States Senate.
30 seconds to respond, or we could move on to one more question.
Let's do one more
All
question.
right, that question will come from Claire McFarland, and Senator Barrasso, you'll respond first for 2 minutes.
If the COVID-19 pandemic fell on us all over again today, and knowing what you know now, would you do anything differently as a U.S. Senator, and what would that be?
And as a doctor, too. I mean, I'm a doctor, I'm a U.S. Senator, and I was for the vaccine and against the mandate. And we need to make sure that we are prepared. I think that what we did was too prematurely shut down the entire country. I mean, you look at the hospitals in Wyoming that had to shut down when it hadn't even gotten to Wyoming because we didn't have the protective equipment that we needed. And these are hospitals where nothing could be done. Mammograms weren't done for 4 months in Wyoming because everything was shut down. Different preventive care wasn't done. I think we should not have shut down the country the way that we did. I think that was a mistake. Should have selectively looked at areas where the disease is and make sure, I think we're much further along with vaccine development now. And then the question is, people should make the decisions by themselves if they want a vaccine. As a doctor, I've taken it, but as an individual, I don't think the government should tell you you have to. And that's one of my real problems with the Biden administration with their vaccine mandate, which is also stopping a number of people from going into the military when they have to get that vaccine.
Mr. Morrow, 90 seconds.
Okay, we agree that it's a good idea to get the COVID vaccine and boosters. I've done them too. I get a lot of flack from people on your side of the aisle for that, and I'm grateful that you're role modeling such great behavior regarding that, so thank you. As far as hospitals shutting down, I missed all that. As far as mandates, I read, I don't consider it a mandate when I tell you, Mr. Peck, either get a vaccine or get tested every week. You know, the guy he endorsed was giving our testing equipment to Putin instead of to us when we really, really needed it here. You couldn't get a test. You couldn't buy a test for $50 here in the United States. Putin's getting them all. So I would like to straighten that out. There was never a mandate by the Biden administration. They did want you either to get the vaccine or get tested. That's reasonable when we have 20 or 30,000 people dying every day, a horrible death on a ventilator, who couldn't talk to their families. Come on. It's not unreasonable to have a mandate, or please get tested so we don't get people sick at your federal agency. I don't consider that radical at all. I consider it good common sense to protect Americans, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight to protect Americans. I'm not going to tell them they have to get the vaccine, but now I'm going to tell them, John Barrasso, he got his and I got mine. You might want to follow suit.
Senator, 30 seconds to follow up.
That's fine.
We've reached the end of our question and answer period. We now have 2 minutes closing statements from each candidate. Mr. Morrow, you go first.
Okay, I thank everybody that's been here. I thank John for showing up, and surprisingly, I think we agreed on a great number of things. Isn't that amazing that we can agree on so many things, and then in your job, I know you're getting a lot of flack, you're getting a lot of this vitriol and hatred. You've been very nice, very professional, and that's something I really like to see. What I have trouble with is the 20 years I've been calling your office, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times for stuff like, please co-sponsor S-597, it's the Social Security Fairness Act, and I get a letter from you saying it costs too much. It doesn't cost anything. There's no funding at all in the act. So that type of disingenuous behavior, saying that they're giving free cell phones and free housing and free food and free this and that to undocumented people, that's patently false. There's no evidence of it. It's been debunked over and over and over again. You got to stop watching Fox News and Newsmax because they're lying to you. And then when you pass that on, you hurt yourself. You're a very professional, intelligent human being. What do you get out of being disingenuous with your constituents? Please be truthful for them. It's not going to hurt you a bit. In fact, it might help you in your election if you could be honest about these things and stop being so vitriolic and hateful towards immigrants. Immigrants built this country. Your family's an immigrant. My family's an immigrant. And the only ones that aren't immigrants are the First Peoples over there on Wind River and all the other reservations. So I'm going to fight for all of Wyoming individually, except for maybe the rich and powerful, which I consider your constituency. They've got enough people working for them. I'm going to work for the disabled, the 37% of Wyomingites that are poor, the people making $2.13 an hour trying to get tuition to UW. I'm going to fight for the disabled. I'm going to fight like I've been fighting for 46 years for workers and the least among us. I think that's what a senator should be, and you deserve better than John Barrasso.
Scott Morrow, Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate. Thank you.
Well, thank you for staying with us this evening. And to me, elections, it's not a reward system, it's a job application. And I'm applying for this job because I think I can make a positive difference for the people of Wyoming and the future success of our state. Earlier this summer, a guy yelled to me in a parade, and he said, "You're a warrior, Barrasso." I want to be forceful, effective, and a conservative, responsible voice fighting for the people of Wyoming. Like many of you know, I lost my wife to cancer this past year. Many of you knew and loved Bobby. She was terrific. She would always say, "John, your job is about a lot more than voting on bills. It's about making sure seniors get their Social Security checks. It's about making sure veterans get the health care that they need. It's about making sure that farmers and ranchers, if they get the runaround from Washington, that they have somebody to talk to. It's about helping young people from Wyoming who want to go to the military academies." That's what this is about. And for me, it's about more than that. It's about spending every Thanksgiving with our Wyoming troops. We have a big deployment right now in the Middle East, and the war is the world is a very dangerous place, and they're in harm's way. We didn't talk about any of those issues this evening, but I'll be with them in Thanksgiving, just as I was with our soldiers in South Korea last year for Thanksgiving. And you know, we share a meal. Some of these kids, it's the first time they've ever been away from home for Thanksgiving. You know what they want to talk about? They want to talk about the Wyoming weather, they want to talk about hunting this fall, and they want to talk about the Wyoming Cowboy football team. And I want to go to thank them on behalf of the people of Wyoming for the sacrifices they are making. As a United States Senator, I will tell you, this isn't about me. This election is about you and your family and your life and your future and your freedom. And I will work for you, I will stand up for you, and I will fight for you every day in the United States Senate on behalf of the people of Wyoming. And I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Senator John Barrasso, Republican nominee for U.S. Senate. Thanks to the candidates for their participation. Again, I'm Steve Peck of Wyoming PBS. My fellow panelists, Claire McFarland of Cowboy State Daily, Chris Clements of Wyoming Public Radio. Thanks to the candidates, to the panelists. If you haven't voted already, which you are able to do in Wyoming, please make sure you vote by Election Day. Thanks for watching Wyoming PBS.